Good afternoon, everyone. 5 o'clock straight up. It is a Thursday edition of On Cue. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We'll take you up to about 6 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. 60 minutes to play with. Always encourage you guys to get social with us as well. At Rich Q on X, on IG, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Subscribe to the YouTube channel on a Thursday. We like to call it a Thawed Out Thursday. Obviously, we were not on the air for a Woosah Wednesday, which, let's be honest, ticked off a lot of people. But we are back. And that's all that matters. A very busy Thursday. How about my Yankees last night? My goodness, it got a little dicey. I can't stand, by the way, I cannot stand the whole idea of this, best out of three. I'm not a fan of it at all, to be quite honest with you. I'm really not. Um, you're winning 90 something odd games a season and it comes down to a 3-game set. Not a fan, but nonetheless, the Yankees get bailed out with a couple E's from the Red Sox. They shouldn't have lost the other night. I mean, that's utterly ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. You got bases loaded, no outs in the ninth against Chapman. Come on, can you friggin' push across a run? I mean, that was just a bad job all around by the Yankees. But alas, here we go. So we've got the baseball to get into. We've got a ton of NFL. And I mentioned this last week. A.J. Brown, Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver, has to speak, talking about no targets, no catches, no receptions, no stats, not talking about Jalen Hurts. Eagles offense has some issues. I also mentioned last week, when were the Cleveland Browns going to bench Joe Flacco? And I thought maybe you get through this international trek, but alas, they're going to go with Dylan Gabriel. I'll get into Shedeur Sanders, who this kid is an absolute friggin' clown, in a moment. But we do have Thursday Night Football to start things off, the 49ers and the Rams. And you're seeing right now in the NFL, injuries are taking a toll on some of these teams, especially from the quarterbacking play. Now, on a Man Up Monday, look, we were there, right? We talked about this. We had more misses than hits with some of our plays over the weekend. Did a lot better on the other show, Tropical Pets of Water, where I gave out some very good Premier League picks. But a new edition of Back Your Play is out. Lloyd and I cut that this afternoon. So we went through the gamut, all of week 5. Very interesting, as I mentioned. Starts off tonight, the 49ers and the Rams. Philadelphia Eagles, I think it's going to be a good test for them at home against the Denver Broncos. The Giants going on the road, mind you. That line is flip-flop from the Giants being favored to now 1.5-point dogs against the Saints. But you've got teams right now in the NFL that I think after 4 weeks, they're at a crossroad. They're at a crossroad. They need to figure out who they are. They need to figure out what their identity is. And some teams, like the Philadelphia Eagles, for a defending Super Bowl champ, to have so many issues offensively, it's unacceptable. It really is. It's not even about how many games they're winning or how many games they won in a row or the run they've been in or on since last year's Super Bowl run and bridging it into this season. You take away the debacle at the end of the Rams game, you take away a bad Baker Mayfield pick. This team is 2-2. And they've got issues offensively. Saquon Barkley has yet to get off. And then to have these conversations with A.J. Brown, it's utterly ridiculous. And here's what people forget that are Eagles fans, and it's not talked about enough. Sirianni did not interview anyone when it came to the OC position. Kevin Petullo was his guy. And when you have all these weapons like the Philadelphia Eagles have, how in the world do you sit there and you've got negative yardage, negative passing yards in a quarter and a half. And I don't want to hear this. He's got mouths to feed, which is a great problem. Not when you have some of these players that want to get theirs. And again, I get it. A.J. Brown wants to win. He also wants his snaps and his reps. For him to sit there in the locker room the other day and have to say a tweet, whatever the hell, is not about a Jalen Hurts. It's not about the head coach. It's not about getting his. It's just like, when is the nonsense going to end? Because as well as I do, Denver's got a pretty damn good defense, but you also know that they're going to force feed the ball. You might as well bookmark A.J. Brown, 7 catches, 96 yards and potentially a touch against Denver, they're going to force feed him the ball. You know it, and I know it. Period. Because that's what they do. You've got a player that is not happy, a player that's disgruntled, and here we go. So we'll get into the Eagles. Then you got what's going on again. I mean, I just cannot for the life of me with some of these young quarterbacks. CJ Stroud saying he lost a step already. Are you kidding me with that? Right? I mean, my goodness. Lost a step? Come on. Utterly ridiculous. We're going to get into that. Lloyd Vance going to join me in about 15 to 20. And then, this Shedeur Sanders stuff, it's to the point right now where I'm telling you, the kid's a clown. Like, honestly, he's an immature clown. And I hate to say it. And I understand his reaction, doing the mime, not giving comments, not speaking, was a direct shot back at Rex Ryan. And Rex Ryan's on the mothership. And Rex Ryan is saying whatever the hell he wants to say because that's who Rex Ryan is. We get it. But Sanders, if you listen to what Joe Flacco is saying, if you listen to what Dylan Gabriel is saying, this is an issue. All you hear is, well, Dylan comes in, he's prepared. He takes his craft serious. That's what Flacco says. And then Dylan Gabriel turns around and goes, you got to take advantage of the moment. You can't wait for the moment. It might never arrive. Like, these are little passive-aggressive shots, and I'm starting to wonder, do they actually like this kid? Like, for him to get drafted by Cleveland, at this moment, as much as we want to see the kid out there, I don't think we are. And if Dylan Gabriel actually shows you any flash, any substance, any skill from the quarterbacking position, it's not going to shock me if Stefanski turns around and says, this kid's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, which basically ices out Shedeur Sanders, which basically kiboshes any type of, again, conversation if he's going to get some reps this season. I mean, this kid's right now third quarterback. Flacco's bench. The kid's still buried on the depth chart. Now, I don't know if he's practicing well. I don't know if he's taking his craft serious, but his reaction, his passive aggressive, his nonsense, his immaturity, that is a problem. That is a problem. Being Deion Sanders' kid is only going to get you so far in life, right? It's only going to get you so far. I think this is a major, major issue. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it for an hour. But again, you've got these young quarterbacks that have proven nothing in the NFL. Zero. Nothing. And they expect to come out of the gate and be a starter. And it doesn't work like that in the NFL. It doesn't. It really doesn't. De facto says, glad you're back on the air. Happy you took a couple days to come down off that emotional high of that close Denver Bengals game. I mean, I mentioned this on Monday. What the hell do you want from me? Didn't I mention it on Monday? Didn't I man up on it? We're still talking about this crap. Let it go. What are you, an elephant? Took one day off. How to do basketball. Been cutting content all week long, de facto. Stop talking what ifs, Q. What if Dante Adams gets called for that OPI? What if Carter doesn't spit on... You should be a 2-2 team. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. If Carson Wentz doesn't tear up his knee, you win in the Super Bowl with Carson Wentz? What if? Probably not. Should be a 2-2 team. You're 4-0. It's smoke and friggin' mirrors right now for the Eagles fans. Sorry. It is. Eagles fans want to gloss over the fact that the offense is offensive. It is. It's offensive. Cowboys could have won. The Chiefs game, you didn't look like world beaters. The Rams get bailed out with a blocked field goal, and Baker does Baker late in the game in the red zone. But you won. So you are 4-0. I understand that. And I think it's a little different animal this week against this defense of Denver. They can stop the run a little bit. They got corners. They got secondary guys. I'm a Bo Nix guy. Bo Nix will frustrate the hell out of Denver fans because he can look like a really solid, pure pocket passer. And then sometimes when he tries to improvise, he doesn't make the most sound decision, right? But Bo Nix can play. He's a good quarterback. Am I going to sit here and jump on Denver in this spot? Getting 3.5? I don't think so. Eagles are going to stockpile some wins because of their schedule. And you got through a couple tough teams, no doubt. After Denver, you get the Giants, Minnesota, the Giants. Pencil those in. This team might be 8-0 by the time they go on the road to take on the Packers. The Packers, the Lions, the Cowboys, there's your test to close it out. You have to go up to Orchard Park in late December. Tom and Summers Point, Q, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm not buying in to A.J. Brown's claims about his lack of targets. He's a problem child. He is. But what are you going to do? You're not trading A.J. Brown. You're not going to do that. You're not. Absolutely no way the Eagles, I don't want to hear this, teams are calling and they'll call. They ultimately know, okay, the Eagles ultimately know they need A.J. Brown, especially if teams are keying in on the run first and trying to shut down Saquon Barkley, which should open up some opportunities for Smith, Goddard in the passing game. But I just don't understand why this offense is slow. How can you explain you have these types of weapons on this team and yet you're having negative passing yards in a quarter and a half? I mean, you guys are Eagles fans. Sirianni, this was his guy. He handpicked him, didn't interview anyone else, right? Scott chimes in. Sanders does have me heated, but I want to see what he can do. But let's go with Gabriel. Browns need a lot more luck. But Q, mark the tape. Broncos will be at the Eagles. This is not a trap, but a regular loss. So you're actually you think that Denver's going to go on the road and beat the Philadelphia Eagles? I mean, listen, I am not spite picking, contrary to what some believe. I don't spite pick. That's just, what are you, 6? I mean, I would expect that. I would expect that from de facto. I'm not spite picking against the Eagles. I'm not. I think it's going to be a game. I basically said they're going to be 8-0. I mean, what the hell do you want from me? What more do you want? Kevin C. and Jackson chimes in. Q, how in the world are the Giants a dog this weekend? Because you got a rookie quarterback who's going on the road. And it's also recency bias, too. It is. It's recency bias, not because of what Jackson Dart did, because of the fact that the Saints went on the road and actually gave Buffalo a game. Listen, if you're playing anything this weekend, I do like the Giants on the money line. I like Jackson Dart anytime touchdown. My man Scattaboo, rushing props, anytime touchdown. But if the Giants get a win on the road against the Saints, we know they're coming back down to reality the next couple of weeks. They got the Eagles, Denver, and the Eagles again. But again, it's all about hope. That's all you want. And this kid got snubbed by the Saints, so maybe he has a little chip on the shoulder. I don't know. But it's all about a spark. All these teams right now that are dealing with these quarterback issues, the Giants hope they have someone. The Jets don't. The Jets, you talk about a team with these bridge quarterbacks. The Jets tried out Fields, who I thought was going to have a big year. He's regressed. He had one play the other night. The Jets offense, they turn the ball over at an alarming rate. They're an undisciplined team. They're going to have to go after a quarterback in the offseason. Cincinnati, you have no idea the health going forward with Joe Burrow. The Browns, again, you got a veteran. You're hoping you have something in one of these two young players. The Colts already made the decision. Daniel Jones right now is the franchise quarterback. The Saints don't have a quarterback. Jets don't have a quarterback. Miami, I don't know what they're going to do with Tua. You get C.J. Stroud, who's 23 years of age, saying he's lost a step. You want to hear that from your franchise quarterback? I was more explosive in high school? Dude, you're 23. If you're 43 and you want to sit there and say you lost a step, that's fine. I mean, some of these teams are in trouble. Washington, it's not panic mode, but they're in a little bit of trouble. Baltimore, that's panic mode. That is panic mode. If I am at this point, the Baltimore Ravens, I got to be worried with Lamar Jackson because his game is predicated on what? Breaking the pocket, scrambling around, moving around, buying time. Yes, he's a pocket passer, but his game is predicated on scrambling around and making plays. And now you potentially are losing him for a couple weeks. That's why they've been mum. I mean, this can really open up the doors in the AFC. It really can. If Lamar Jackson is out for an extended period of time, Baltimore is going to have to just ride the legs of Derrick Henry. Now, I believe when you're talking about the Baltimore Ravens, we know their identity. We know their identity. This team wants to, has to, needs to run the football. They have to. And I think the Texans are in a bad spot right now. I really do. Because Baltimore has gotten embarrassed defensively the last 2 weeks. They gave up 38 and 37 to the Lions and the Chiefs, respectively. So at this moment, this is a game right now. Even if Lamar Jackson is not playing, I still think Baltimore is going to be able to run the football against the Texans. But they got to start stockpiling wins. The Baltimore Ravens. Washington, Jaden Daniels, he's going to try to give it a go. But Washington hasn't shown you that offensive explosion just yet. So they've got a little bit of issues. All these teams we talk about, they've got weaknesses. The Eagles have a weakness. The Bills have a weakness. The Lions have a weakness. Green Bay has a weakness. I have it on good authority that the corporation CEO, Michael Reed, said the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles will be taking their first L. Is that a mush cue? I don't call it a mush. I don't think that's a mush. I think a mush is, there's etiquette involved. And a lot of times I would steer clear of, let me just throw this out there, texting your buddies on a text chain during a game and, proclaiming W's. Not the W you're thinking of, but proclaiming W's, which can easily turn to L's. I think this young man, Michael, is just a fanatical Denver Broncos fan. He's a Bo Nix fan. He believes the Eagles are due for a loss. Denver's going to go on the road and have a big win. Hence, he's proclaiming the W with a little bravado, a little swag, a little cockiness. I don't have a problem with that. Now, if a clipping's going on and the Eagles are up 28-3, then Miguel has to come out of the woodwork. See, that's where I would have a problem. But right now, saying it's going to be a W and the Eagles are going to get tagged with a loss, maybe that's just a confident fan. Maybe that's a fan that's getting tired of hearing from the Eagle faithful, the Bunker Boys, right? Maybe that's a fan of a team that just feels as though he's been slighted. He's been dismissed. He's been looked over. That can be accurate. If I had said everyone would be calling it a mush, claiming it a mush. Well, listen, as I mentioned, reception is good up there in the mountains. 16. That's the 5 o'clock hour. Sarge chimes in. Q, I'm not going to sit there and say it's panic mode for the Ravens. I'd be more concerned with the Commanders. Yeah, I'm not ready to go there. Washington will be okay without Jaden Daniels if Mariota has to be out there. Look, the 49ers have issues right now. The 49ers, if you think about it, should be sticking with Mac Jones over Brock Purdy. They've got a ton of injuries. So the Rams are getting them at a good spot. But point is, you're talking about these teams we thought were going to make deep runs in the playoffs, and we're 4 or 5 weeks into the NFL season right now. And they're injured. And that's not good. Tom Cranberry chimes in. Q, how about the Yankees last night? Yeah, I'm not going to get too carried away. How about this? Tigers up on the Guardians, who were just absolutely sizzling late down the stretch, 6-1. Padres and the Cubs, 0-0 right now. Yankees, I can't, just for the life of me, these 6 o'clock starts. Yankees and the Sox, game 3. Is that an 8 o'clock start or a 6 o'clock start? I think it's a 6 o'clock start, but be that as it may, listen, this series, Yankees should have won game 1. You got bases loaded, bottom of the 9th, no outs. You got to push across runs, man, especially against Chapman. It's the same old story with the Yankees every single solitary postseason when we're talking about their clutch players, right? And you know exactly where I'm going with this. Can Aaron Judge get a big hit in a big spot, right? The kid Rice picks up the offense. Can friggin' Stanton get a big hit in a big spot? I mean, honestly, can Volpe get a big hit in a big spot? It's just after a while, it just, come on. Like these, you know what you're getting. Now, granted, Volpe had the home run the other night to account for their only run, but then he turns around, he's got an 0 for 4 last night. He struck out one time, struck out once. Judge, same thing. Stanton, same thing. Red Sox aren't going away. This is going to be a hell of a game tonight. And ultimately, I go back to Boone. And you guys know how I feel about Aaron Boone. I'm not a fan of Aaron Boone. Like, you got to have a sense of the game. You got to have a feel for the game. So we can sit there and talk about bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, no outs against Aroldis Chapman. Okay. But let's also talk about what? How you don't allow starters to go deep into games anymore? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Fried was pitching a gem. Let's pull him. It always backfires, and Boone is notorious for doing that. You got a pitcher on the mound pitching 6 1/3 innings of friggin' shutout ball. Let's go to the bullpen that had a friggin' 4.47 ERA during the regular season, which was 23rd among the 30 teams, and we expect them to do something a little different and not falter. And that's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. They faltered. They came up small again. There's no corporate bias. Cooper Rush stinks on ice. Ravens D is horrible. Does Pittsburgh take the division? Ravens D got old and they're bad. They're bad. That's why I said Washington can weather the storm more without Daniels than Baltimore can weather the storm more without Lamar Jackson. Mariota is a serviceable quarterback. They got to run the football. I don't know why Baltimore's defense is so bad. It's like alarmingly bad. And you're right. It might open up the door for the Pittsburgh Steelers that are quietly going about their business in 3-1. And Aaron Rodgers is happy, with the edibles and the mushrooms and the whatever, the ukulele, echinacea, whatever the hell that is. He's having fun, a little smoking and joking. Here we go. Playing at a high level and quietly. Pittsburgh's 3-1. They're 3-1. And they've got, listen, how about the Steelers with their games coming up? You got the Browns and Cincy. They can be 5-1 before they have to take on the Green Bay, Indianapolis, the Chargers. So, yeah, they might get to 10 wins based on that alone. All right, 22 past the 5 o'clock hour. Just cranking up quick timeout. Lloyd Vance on the other side. Keep it locked in. We'll get to your comments as well. Always get social with us at Rich Q on Q. And you can also capture us on SR 1029 FM The Game. As I mentioned, TikTok, Rich Q on the mic, the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. It's a thought out Thursday. I don't know where Madman is. Probably upset. No Woosah Wednesday, but it is a thought out Thursday. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. All right, welcome back. 25 past 5 o'clock hour, a Thursday edition of On Cue. Again, Rich Quinones here. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. We just cut a new edition of Back Your Play. I was actually shocked, pleasantly shocked, when I got the insights from last weekend or the week prior, like well over 5,000 downloads. I'm like, Lloyd's bringing something to the table. I'm not. Our good friend Lloyd Vance, in a week, by the way, not bad. Our good friend Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, kind enough to join me for a couple moments. Give him a follow at Lloyd Vance. I know you had your show the other night. I'm sure you were talking about this. Let's kind of appease some of these Eagles fans first and foremost. Do you believe their offensive issues can be remedied? Do you think they'll be able to figure this out, or is this something that's going to linger throughout the season?
I think as the season goes on, Q they'll get better. You know what I mean? It's tough right now. They're not on the same page. I think a big thing has to do with that offensive line that's in flux due to some injuries, as well as Mekhi Becton going to the Chargers. So they have to find a running game first and foremost and get Saquon going again. It's not last year. You know, he's finding some tough sledding out there, but Sirianni may have to step in a little bit and help Pachulo out here. So it's going to be something they're going to have to work through.
But interesting you mentioned that, because we talked a little bit about this earlier today. He was handpicked, right? That was his guy. They didn't interview anyone else. Um, can when you force feed a player the football, you're now you're going out of your offensive game plan, right? And that's when mistakes happen. That's when turnovers happen. Um, every player wants to get theirs, right? We know that. So, by the way, it looks as though Jackson is going to be out for about 2 to 3 with Baltimore. We'll get into it for a moment. But do you the identity right now of the Philadelphia Eagles offensively, like what would you say it is?
Well, it's like Jalen Hurts not making mistakes, and they've had big plays from special teams, putting them on the doorstep, and then they used to tush push. So, Q, it hasn't been anywhere near explosive. You know that's what you expect from a Super Bowl champion. You expect these plays downfield, but there have not been any. They have had Goddard have make some plays and Smith as well, but they definitely need to make some more bigger plays if they want playoff success.
So I talked a little bit about some of these quarterbacks banged up, being questioned. I mean, look, CJ Stroud talking about being tired at 23 years of age. There's talk in Carolina that they're starting to believe that Bryce Young is not the guy. Like, it's beyond buyer's remorse, because he just doesn't look comfortable in the pocket, which is really, it's unfortunate. And I don't know. Again, then the argument comes out: are we rushing these guys? Are they not being coached up? Are they not being evaluated the right way? Are they being evaluated properly? Are they going in the wrong fit? We'll get into Cleveland bench and Joe Flacco, but how about Stroud making those comments? Like, to me, that's alarming. If you're the franchise freaking quarterback, and we were waxing poetic about you and D'Amico Ryans a couple seasons ago, and now you're starting to regress, and you're saying that you've lost a step. It's like, my man, you're 23 years old.
Yeah, Q, it's scary. You don't want your quarterback not to have that confidence. He needs to have that swagger, lead the team, and right now Stroud is missing that. And let's face it, yeah, they won last week over a very bad Titans team, but they have not looked good, and he hasn't really looked good since his first year when he was dominant, and kind of everybody's caught up to him. And we've seen this before with some younger quarterbacks that have had success. Think of Vince Young. You know, he came out very good his rookie season, and everybody thought he was going to ascend. But sometimes it kind of, it's a bumpy road for these quarterbacks. And you talk about, do they get rushed? Yes, Q. In a word, yes, they do, because there's too much money involved in these high draft picks, and they want to get them on the field.
Yeah. Man says, have you seen the O line in Houston? Absolute clown show. It's bad, but your quarterback shouldn't talk about losing a step. So far, Hurts has gotten away with more than a few errant throws. Yep, I agree. They need to run the football. They need to establish the football. They need to establish the ground game first and foremost. Again, first and foremost. So let's get into Joe Flacco. Benched. You got Shador miming it out, whatever, taking the shots at Rex Ryan and back and forth. He just, it's immature. Like, again, being Deion Sanders' father, that'll only get you so far in life. Like I'm starting to believe that. Do you? It's so hard because we're not in that locker room, right? We've covered teams, we've been in locker rooms before. You know when guys genuinely just are rubbed the wrong way by certain teammates. You kind of know when they entrust you with certain things, right? Or it's after their playing days. But you listen to Flacco and his comments talk about Gabriel comes in, he's studying, he's early, he's taking his craft serious. Then you listen with Dylan Gabriel's kind of taking these passive aggressive shots about, well, there's never a perfect time. You can't wait around. And then you got Sanders miming, not answering questions. It is a circus in Cleveland right now. But with all that being said, if Gabriel goes out and plays well, can you see kind of a Daboll Jackson Dart situation where Daboll has already come out and said Jackson Dart's going to be the starter prior to that game against the Chargers for the rest of the season? Stefanski comes out and says Gabriel's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, which basically squashes any of this nonsense or talk. When are we going to see Shador Sanders? Because we're over Joe Flacco.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this. They're going to give Gabriel every chance to succeed, and I think a lot of the fears of the scouting community are really coming out in terms of Shador Sanders. The off the field nonsense and just not being ready to be a pro. Yes, he probably slipped further than he was supposed to in the draft, but he got his opportunity, and unfortunately, he landed in a very bad place. In terms of Cleveland, they just have no rhyme, no reason. The organization probably needs to be rebooted, and he's there, so he should really be going to work, putting his head down. And you're hearing from these little comments from Flacco that he's not preparing, etc., that he's not embracing the challenge. So it's going to be interesting soap opera the rest of the way in Cleveland.
I mean, look, I mean, when do you have a third string quarterback get as much airtime as he does? I mean, I told you this last week. I thought no matter what, you had to bench Flacco. I was a little surprised that they benched him for this game, the international game. But again, I guess you're looking at the opposition, the opponent, which you mentioned on Back Your Play was a great point. Minnesota's laying 3.5. It's all about Brian Flores and that defense. And now you got a kid making a rookie start overseas. I mean, that's a tough spot for this kid.
Yeah, Q, and I just saw something online in terms of Cleveland Browns starting rookie quarterbacks. It's not very good. That I don't think any of them have won in terms
Wow.
of making big starts in these types of situations. So Gabriel's got his hands full. Everybody talks about him as a Kellen Moore type, a guy who's a coach on the field, and his arm strength. We'll see about that, but they need to lean on Junkins in this game, running the ball first and foremost. He's really come along as a running back. I know he has an off-the-field situation, but Quinshon Junkins looks like a very good pick for them. Yeah, and Gabriel, they'll have timing throws, not deep down the field, but they'll have short slants and get the ball out in the flat to the running back. But it's going to be an interesting game over there. You got the battle of the backups. We'll see. It's Gabriel or Wentz who steps forward.
Mike in Ohio, big time Cleveland fan. Q, I'm so sick and tired of this friggin' franchise. At this point, I don't really care who the hell's under center. Get rid of the head coach, get rid of the GM, blow it up. Our fan base deserves so much better. But I will say this. Is it just Sanders is an immature kid, or do you really think this is who he is? I don't know. I think the kid wants to play, right? The kid, he wants to play. Um, and it's probably humble pie that he's got to sit. It's humble pie that his stock dropped in the draft. It's humble pie that, he's third string. It's humble pie that the kid Gabriel's getting the start over him. But that comes with the territory. And I look at that and it's, again, joking in the locker room, doing the mind, thinking you're having fun. It's all about the optics. And when the front offense of a team sees that, seeing this kid doing that, they take it on face value and say he's not taking his craft serious. Now, this is not even about, oh man, get off my lawn, get off the porch. This is the reality of sports. It is. So he's having fun. He's taking a shot back, a veiled shot at Rex Ryan. We know who Rex Ryan is. Rex Ryan's going to say what he says because that's what he gets paid to do. But ultimately, there is a part of me that just wants this kid to get reps, snaps, get in the game. And then if you fall flat on your fanny, you really can't say anything. Or we're going to have the discussion, well, the O line, you know, didn't play well, or they put him in a bad position to win the game, or the play calling is bad. Like sometimes you got to get off the jock and stop sniffing it with some of these players, right? Because he's proven nothing in the NFL. I don't know what this kid Gabriel's going to do, but I'm telling you this truth serum, if he goes out and he plays well and they somehow win the game, Stefanski's going to come on Monday or Tuesday when he does his presser when they get back overseas. And it's not going to shock me. He'll turn around and say, this kid's going to be a starter for the rest of the season. Like, I do feel there's this element where it's not even spiting Sanders. It's just wanting the situation to go away. And this is how we remedied it. We name him the starter, and that's it. And you live with it.
Yeah, Q, and you know about these head coaches. They want to minimize distractions. And that's what they were afraid of with Shador Sanders, the off the field stuff in terms of social media. He's always been famous, in terms of his father, and they had a reality show. So everybody knew who he was coming from Colorado. But in reality, he's a fifth round draft pick. And you talked about it. What the third string quarterback have we talked about like this? The only one I could think of was like when Tebow was with the New York Jets and the kind of circus that he brought with him, and he just was not good enough. Now we'll see if Shador Sanders is in that same conversation. I think he will get his opportunities. Gabriel, this is a good spot for him in terms of facing a 2-2 Vikings team that has a backup quarterback also starting. So we'll see how he fares, but I think eventually Shador Sanders will get his opportunity, and he has to embrace it, and he also has to be a pro about it and prepare for that opportunity. All the backups I talked to in the past, they were like, I prepare every week like I'm going to be the next rep up because something could always happen to the starter.
The only part of that I'll disagree. I don't think this is a one and done. Like, I don't think Stefanski is going to start this kid. He plays poorly, and then next week he's going to say, "Okay, Shador, you're going to go on the road against, a 3-1 Steelers team in the division." I don't see that.
Yeah, no, I think Q in a 17-game season, maybe it's later on that they finally acquiesce. I still think the owner, Jim Haslam, had something to do with the drafting of Shador Sanders. And we saw this in the past, with the same team. Think of Johnny Manziel. They were like, he put him on the field. We want to see him. He wasn't ready. He wasn't preparing, and they still put him out there. So it may be, after week 12 through 14 or something. But I think it was a chance. They saw what Flacco could do. Obviously, he was not the answer.
More panic mode. The Ravens right now with Lamar Jackson, because that's a tricky injury, or Washington. Jaden Daniels is most likely is going to give it a go. Baltimore has been so mum on Lamar Jackson. Now there's reports out there that he's going to miss the next 2 to 3. Hamstring is always a tricky injury, especially when the weather gets colder out. It tightens up a little more. It could be a lingering issue. I mean, their defense stinks. They've got issues, but right now, we're talking about two teams in the DMV. Cause for concern more, like the level right now. Washington full out panic mode or Baltimore full out panic mode?
Yeah, great question, Q. I'll go with the Baltimore Ravens. There was just
Agreed.
such high expectation for them. Think about that opening game where against the Bills and everybody was so excited. Man, that was such a great game. And you think, okay, they'll bounce back from that loss and keep ascending. But these injuries are just piling up for the Ravens. We went through them on BYP. It's at least 5 guys. Matabike is on IR. You have Ronnie Stanley. And you talk about Jackson. And there's several guys that have hamstrings on the Ravens. It's going to be tough for them to overcome this. Right now, 1-3. I think they're hoping to get to 2-4 and then get to the bye, and then he may be able to come back. But it's not good.
It is interesting what happens when quarterbacks go down in the NFL from a line standpoint, right? Because take tonight, for instance, Rams are pretty much a 9. It's going to close. They're a 9-point favorite, right? So you got all these injuries with San Francisco. If Brock Purdy's playing, that line probably drops. The Rams are still going to be favored, right? But they're probably looking at a 3 to 4, 4.5 point favorite. And if you're the 49ers, I mean, I don't have a problem with sticking with Mac Jones for a little bit, see if he can just kind of weather the storm, win a couple games. Listen, you figure out a way to win tonight. You got Tampa Bay, and you don't know what Mayfield you're going to get. You got the Falcons, you got the Texans, and the Giants. The 49ers can still be that playoff team, that 10-plus win team that I talked about, even though they have issues. Now, here's the question, the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. If Jones plays well, do you start to say, okay, Brock, we know we paid you, we know what you done, but we're going to stick with Mac Jones in the hot hand right now?
Oh man, Q, I don't see that happening in terms
I
with
listen. You
all
never
the
know.
money.
Hot hand, you know
You
this.
never know in the National Football League. After we saw what happened with Kirk Cousins making all that money, putting a guy in the bench, so it could happen. But he's been their guy. He led them to a Super Bowl. Mac Jones though does have that pedigree, and we saw it in Philadelphia where I am. Carson Wentz went down. Foles goes in, the team rallies around him and wins a Super Bowl. And then the next season, it's like, all right, what do we do here? And everything had changed. So, yeah, if Mac Jones has some success and this is a 3-1 team, maybe he can win some games. Yeah, it's like, oh man, what do we do here? Because you saw it with the Giants in terms of Hostetler and Sims.
Back and forth. I mean, that was all Ray Hanley, by the way. It was horrible. You come off a Super Bowl. Sims goes down week 13 and 90. Haas comes in. They win games, right? They beat the 49ers, no repeat. You had that drive, and they did what they needed to do against Buffalo wide right. The next year, Parcells retires after. The next year, Hanley comes in, and this idiot names Hostetler the week one starter. And then it only took the flip flopping, and then finally Dan Reeves to turn around in 93 and say, Phil, you're the starter again. And oh, by the way, they go 11-5 and they win a playoff game. I mean, that coaching is everything in the NFL. It is everything in the NFL, which kind of leads me to this. You look at the two bright coordinators that left Detroit, Ben Johnson, who, is now getting questioned by sideline reporters. And then you look at Aaron Glenn. And Aaron Glenn sits there and says, we're not the same old Jets. And then you see the slop that they trek out there on Monday night where they're turning the ball over left and right. Fields made the nice play, the long touchdown run. But other than that, he's a bridge quarterback. I mean, Aaron Glenn cannot say we're not the same old Jets because they are still the same old Jets. Do you believe somewhere these two are sitting there saying, man, we should have stayed in Detroit knowing that there's only 32 of these potential jobs available?
Wow, they've been searching for opportunity for quite a while, and we always say, was this the best situation? But a lot of these guys take these jobs, whether it's the Bengals or the Browns, and you're like, oh, somebody's got to hire them, the Titans, and especially with the Jets. It was interesting with Glenn. He did that pre-celebration down in Tampa, and he did his little dance, and he's like, oh, we got this. But they are the same old Jets. They didn't get the job done. They didn't finish the game, and it takes 60 minutes to win a game, and they just have not done that in terms of consistent performance and not turning the football over. So they are a little better, but it's going to take a while to turn this roster over. And yeah, he's got a lot to work on, and so do the Bears as well. I think the Bears may be in a little better situation, but they got to get Caleb Williams seen to feel better. He's too inconsistent.
Do you think the do you think Cincinnati will trade for a quarterback?
I think give it about 2 to 3 more weeks, if Browning continues to play,
Oh, bro, I got to interrupt you. I can't. I can't. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. If he goes out and he looks poorly and spits the bit, now I have no knowledge of this, but I said it. I posted it too on a Giants chat after, and I said it on the air, and everyone could go back on demand on the YouTube channel. After Russell Wilson threw for 450 and Burrow got hurt, I came on the air and said, if I'm the Giants, I call Cincinnati, or if I'm Cincinnati, I call the Giants and I trade for Russell Wilson right now. Like, he's there. You want a serviceable option, a veteran, a pro's pro. Browning is not the answer. You're trying to salvage your season. Russell Wilson's going to hold a clipboard for the rest of the season with the Giants.
Yeah, Q. And you're talking about Cincinnati. It's 2-2. They're still in the mix. We've seen teams, 9 wins, 10 wins that get to dance. Why not look for another?
Or Jameis Winston.
Right, and let's face it, he's not going to change in these next couple weeks before the trade deadline, which is November 4th. So yeah, why not? And it's not going to take a lot to get some of these backups from a team. You talk about the Giants; they have 3 quarterbacks. Definitely one or the other, whether it's Winston or Wilson. Maybe they could send them somewhere.
What about a Jimmy Garoppolo? Now, hear me out. Played in the Super Bowl, plenty of big game experience, and he's cheap. I think he's on a 1 year deal. I think his base is 1.2, 2.5 million. You're not going to go after Cousins, right? Winston or Russell makes sense, but Garoppolo comes on the cheap with that contract. Andy Dalton's still there with Carolina, but who's to say? I mean, is he the backup right now, Andy Dalton? I'd have to double check. Is he
Yeah,
the
he's
backup?
he's the backup there, and last year he had that car accident to kind of change his arc of the season. He did come in and make some plays, but I don't know if they want to go back to him, like Back to the Future, bringing him back there.
Well, listen, you need something. I mean, you can't keep trotting him out. In that division, it just shows you how important the quarterbacking position is. You lose, there are certain teams that can ill afford to lose their quarterback in the NFL. You can get away with your starter for a couple weeks, right? Just to kind of stop the bleeding a little bit. They're trying to put a band aid on a friggin' gunshot wound. It's not happening. It's
Yeah.
not working. And then you look at the division, Baltimore slipping, Cleveland stinks, and the Steelers, I still believe the Steelers are on borrowed time. I'm
Well,
sorry. I get a lot of Pittsburgh fans that chime in. I think the Steelers are all smoke and mirrors, man. I'm not. I'm not a believer in them. I'm
well, the
not.
record says they're 3-1, and
Eh,
the way it's trending, Q, they may win this very bad division, and then they go to the playoffs like they normally have. The last 5-6 years or so, when they're at one and done. So they got to find a way to in Cincinnati to compete. And you talk about they built a team the wrong way, and we talk about Mike Brown all the time, and as an architect. Chase Brown not getting it done as a running back position. They invested very heavily in their two receivers. We know that, but then they didn't do anything on the defense. Yeah, they slid some money for Hendrickson to get him into camp, but other than that, there's no playmakers on that defense, and it's going to be a long season, especially if they don't have a viable quarterback.
franchise in Delaware chimes in. And the guy still, God forbid, God bless him, alive and kicking, hits me up on Facebook and says, Q, enough of the football talk. You can either talk about the Ravens or the Yankees. I mean, it's always the Yankees or the Ravens or some conspiracy theory. I think the Ravens at this point, your identity's got to be Derrick Henry going forward. It's got to be, especially if you know that Lamar Jackson is going to be banged up for the next several weeks. I know I asked you this. It's a reoccurring theme on the show with some of these coaches. I mean, McDaniel got to win the other night. The Jets stink with Aaron Glenn. Daboll, I think, kind of silenced a lot of people going to Jackson Dart. You got the issues with Stefanski in Cleveland. I mean, what do you do right now with the Titans? I mean, Cam Ward has clearly shown losing has taken a substantial toll on this young kid. And you listen to some of his comments, and then you have to have the coach basically come out and say, look, he's got to have a little decorum. He's got to mature a little bit. I mean, you can't have a rookie prize franchise potential quarterback up there saying what he's saying after losses. You just can't, because, again, it's all about the optics and perception.
Yeah, Q. And last season, they got rid of Rand Carthon, the general manager that they kind of teamed Callahan with, and now Borgonzi's come in there as a general manager, and I think he's going to be tasked with cleaning this situation because Callahan clearly is not the guy. The team is kind of rudderless. The offense is not going anywhere, and you see Cam Ward. It's a bad situation for a first overall number one pick coming into. They're not blocking well for him in terms of offensive line. No running game since they got rid of Derrick Henry, and maybe a couple playmakers on the outside. And the defense has Simmons and not much else. So I think they're going to lose a lot of games. And you and I talked about earlier, are they the 2008 Lions who did not win a game?
So
it's going to be crazy.
I'm going to pull up their schedule right now. You tell me where you see a win. I think Arizona, this is your get right. You mentioned it on BYP earlier today. I think they get waxed. They have to go on the road. They have the Raiders. Is that a win?
It could be if they protect the football and find a way. And Geno Smith's been playing pretty bad, but Max Crosby, I don't think they have anybody who can block them. So I say the Raiders an ugly one there.
At home against the Patriots.
Yeah, we've been talking about Drake May and his ascension. He's playing very well. And Vrabel, that's a revenge game for him. So I'll say New England.
On the road against the Colts.
Daniel Jones has been playing pretty well. I think this is going to get ugly. Jonathan Taylor is going to be running downhill on him. I think that's another loss.
Chargers. I mean, that's
Well,
at
let the
home.
Chargers play like last week.
Well,
You think last week they got a surprise pulled on them. I don't think they'll have that again. They'll be prepared, and they're probably going to beat up Tennessee pretty bad now.
at home against the Texans, at home against Seattle, at home against Jacksonville.
Houston, that could be an opportunity.
I
The
think
way
so.
they've been playing, Stroud, obviously, you're saying seeing ghosts. Maybe they'll play a little bit better if they can get Mixon back. But yeah, I'd say Houston's going to be favored in that game. Seattle, obviously, they're right in the mix. I thought they were going to win the NFC West. I think they would beat up Tennessee pretty bad. Jacksonville, they're 3-1. And you talk about Steelers being fraudish. I think Jacksonville's a little
Oh, don't let Vince hear you say, "Oh my
sorry,
goodness."
but yeah, they're still good enough to beat Tennessee.
I will say they got Cleveland, the 49ers, Kansas City, the Saints, and Jacksonville. If they don't get a win against the Browns on the road, the Saints, I believe, is their last hope.
Yeah, it may be, I still remember a number of years ago where the Dolphins hadn't won a game. They won like the last game of the season on like a long touchdown pass to Camarillo. And, everybody was going and getting excited. And I still think they'll find a way to win one game. Remember Hugh Jackson with the Browns? They went 1-15.
Oh yeah.
They found a way to win a game, and everybody seems to throw a stinker out there every once in a while. Look at what Green Bay did when they played the Browns. They just kind of looked past them, and then next thing you know, they lost.
So I was thinking of this. It's rare you get a team that has back-to-back overall draft picks. It's extremely rare.
Yeah, I think it was Carolina. Was Carolina the last ones to
Uh,
have that? I kind of think. I think it was Carolina.
so Cleveland had back-to-back. Cleveland, they drafted Miles Garrett, right? Was he number overall pick?
I want to say he wasn't. What would?
No, he was first overall pick.
Okay, he was. Yeah, and then
And
yeah,
Baker Mayfield.
yeah, that is back. Yeah,
Oh my God. What am I doing here? Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, and then the kid Trayvon Walker. Wow.
yeah. And Trayvon Walker just had a wrist injury, and they're not sure he's going to be able to play. So, but it just shows even if you have these high picks, if you do not have the right front office in place with a plan, you're just going to keep
Yeah.
repeating the bad mistakes. Bad teams find a way to lose, and it's just like mismanagement all over again.
How about this one, Cincinnati? Cincinnati, big Dan Wilkinson, and then Kajana Carter. Oh,
Oh, yeah, you talk about two great college players that.
yeah.
Yeah, Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson, he did kind of bounce around, kind of revive his career with Washington. But yeah, Kajana Carter, we know about the turf monster got him, and his career never was seen.
Well, I bring it up because they're. I mean, you look around the NFL right now. If they win, one, 2 games, maybe Cleveland wins one or two. I mean, there you go. You got the tank game right there, right? Forget about the March for Arch, right? Bookmark that one. That's a December 7th. That might decide who's going to get the number one overall draft pick. Like, I don't believe the Giants. I think the Giants maybe have 2 more wins on their schedule. I think the Giants can go on the road and beat New Orleans. They're not beating the Eagles twice. They're not beating Denver. They're not beating the 49ers. They're not going to, if Williams plays well, they're not beating the Bears. They're not beating the Packers, the Lions. I don't think they can beat the Pats. I think maybe they can go on the road, maybe beat the Raiders. But other than that, I don't see a lot of wins for the Giants. Their defense is going to have to carry them. So maybe the Giants finish, 3-14 again. You got Cleveland, you got Tennessee. You're going to have 3 or 4 really bad football teams, not to mention the Jets.
Yeah, correct. And I think Cleveland with that defense, they will win some games. You know what I mean? They'll just win some games ugly. And Miami, there's going to be a lot of pressure on them. That they've got one win right now, but they got to find some way to win some games without Tyreek Hill, which is going to be a problem. Jets, they can't turn the football over.
No.
That's been their biggest problem. And we talked earlier about their defense. Their defense has all those big names, but they can't stop anybody. And it's probably going to be New Orleans and Tennessee battling for that top spot. And some poor draft pick is
Well,
going.
which tells me Arch Manning's not coming out. I mean, that listen, the beauty of that is you're monitoring what's going on as it unfolds.
Yeah, I think he needs some more seasoning in terms of his play anyway. So why go to a bad situation? We just talked about Cam Ward, how it's unfortunate he had to go to a really bad team, and then you talk about last year. Caleb Williams came into a no-win situation with Eberflus getting fired. He gets sacked 68 times, the most in the NFL, and then we were talking about these young guys seeing ghosts and they're just maybe never be able to recover from it. Maybe later on, like a Darnold, he goes someplace and can reignite his career, but it's not a good recipe for these young guys coming to the league.
Before I let you get out of here, the what do we got here? Senior category, Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. I'll throw out some names. Kenny Anderson, Roman Gabriel, Dandy Don Meredith, Otis Anderson, Roger Craig, who I believe should be in the Hall of Fame, Henry Ellard, my man Billy White Shoes Johnson, linebackers Carl Banks, Clay Matthews Jr., defensive backs Dick Anderson, special teams Steve Tasker. So you got a couple of quarterbacks. And Kenny Anderson, does Ken Anderson strike you as a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Well, Q, when you look at his career and his efficiency, led them to a Super Bowl. I think he won a co MVP. Um, yeah, he might get a look when you see some of these other guys that have gotten in, and he should get a chance. And I do believe Roger Craig as well. First thousand back. I mean, he set that new standard where guys are catching the passes, being dominant, and won all those Super Bowls with the Niners. I think he should get a look as well. And you talk about an old school guy, Dick Anderson. I mean, he was a big time safety, et cetera, for the Miami Dolphins, that undefeated team.
I think you have to put it um, under the scope of look at the era they played in. So when you look at the 70s and Cowboys start going to the shotgun, that's when Staubach's throwing for like 18 to 21 touchdowns, which was unheard of. Kenny Anderson threw for 21 touchdowns in 75. He was second AP player of the year. He threw for over 32,000 yards, close to 200 touchdowns. You mentioned MVP. Man of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year in 81. That's the year they went to the Super Bowl. Offensive Player of the Year in 81. That's when they went, obviously, they played the 49ers. They were down early, big in that one. Made an interesting late. 4-time Pro Bowl, 2-time NFL, passing yards leader, completion percentage leader, as you mentioned, 74, 82, 83. Passer rating leader. I didn't even know that was a stat, by the way. Ring of Honor for Cincy, 50th anniversary team, and then won a Super Bowl as a coach. I mean, I look at the eras that these guys played with, and I say he's very efficient. He 10 games over 500. He won 10, 10, 10, 12. 12 and 4 was the high water mark. And then obviously, late in his career, they drafted Boomer Esiason, who took over the reins. But I look at him. I think he's going to get some love. Roger Craig, to me, should be a Hall of Famer because I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you for selfish reasons, and you're probably knowing where I'm going with this, why I want Roger Craig. Well, why do you think I want Roger Craig to get in the Hall of Fame?
I'm just laughing because I was thinking the playoff game and the fumble and then the Giants go to the Super Bowl in 1990.
Oh, that was the night. Yeah, well, sure. That was late. That was late in the game. Sure. I mean, they were selling it for field goals after Walls gave up the big play, Montana to Taylor. But no, I always enjoyed watching Roger Craig play. But if Roger Craig gets in, then how does that not open up the door for Tiki Barber?
Yeah, and some of these other guys, their resumes are nice, and he was a dual threat guy, and Tiki as well. He had over 10,000 yards, and Craig was probably pretty close, and
Tiki
he
Barber
did.
had 15,000 yards from scrimmage.
Yeah, so you have to give these guys a look, and when you see some of these other players that are getting and in terms of their stats, and you talk about now, it's offensive driven league, and these older guys, yeah, their stats are just not going to compare to these newer guys, but the era is definitely important, and he was a big time player. I still remember the Super Bowl against Dan Marino. He was the Niners offense. Montana got the MVP, but he very well was in the conversation.
So those are your seniors. Now, obviously, we get to the coup de grace, quarterbacks, and we can talk about this all day. Breeze, Cunningham, Manning, McNabb, McNair, Rivers, Smith. I still maintain if you're sticking Rivers in, I'm sorry, how do you not stick Eli Manning in? But it's so overcrowded right there. You know Breeze is going to get in. Um, Running backs, Tiki Barber again. Sean Alexander, Mike Allstott, Corey Dillon, Warwick Dunn, Eddie George. I mean, Frank Gore, Priest Holmes. That's a damn good list right there. Jamal Lewis, Marshawn Lynch, McCoy. It's not bad. Ricky Waters, who
Yeah,
I also would argue is a Hall of Fame running back.
correct. And with all of them, I always say you have to have 10 years of excellence in the National Football League. You got to be all pros a couple times, and that really puts you in the conversation. Some of these guys, they never won a big one. You know what I mean? And I think winning the Super Bowl as a prime player definitely is important. Shady's always going to say, "Oh, I won some Super Bowls." He was on the roster with the Chiefs and Tampa. But come on, I
Yeah.
mean, they were ride along rings. So you have to be a driver on a championship team and be an All Pro for a number of seasons, be in the conversation.
Right along rings. I like that. Just to break it down, 10 quarterbacks, 21 backs, 18 receivers, 6 tight ends. I mean, out of all of them, Davis, Miller, Olsen, Walls, Walker, Jason Witten. Witten's getting in. 22 offensive linemen, 13 defensive linemen, 14 linebackers, 15 defensive backs. How about this? My guy, good friend of the show, James Hasty on the list. He texted me that. He was very humbled and honored by that for your defensive backs. You got 7 punters, and then you got 2 special teamers. How about Brian Mitchell? You look at B Mitch as a Hall of Famer special teams?
Well, it has to open the doors in terms of getting
Yep.
a
Yep.
return in, but Mitch was a solid guy. I covered him and played a number of years, but he wasn't Devin Hester. Devin Hester was an
No.
explosive guy
Few
in
are.
the game. Yeah, it's interesting. He if he does get in, he's going to have to wait, much like Steve Tasker. I mean, they say special teams matter, but they always kind of put those guys on the back end of it, and we'll see how that works out.
Most career kickoff return yards, most career punt return yards, most career total return yards. Mitchell.
Yeah, and he was a leader in the locker room. I remember him on the Eagles. All the guys respected him, and I still remember that championship game lost to Tampa Bay, where he took the opening kickoff
Broke it.
almost to the house. And I've never heard the vet louder in my life.
Right. And then conversely, later on, when Blaine Bishop didn't get the angle on Joe Duragicius, and of course, Barber's going the other way for the pick 6, it was very quiet. All right, 6 o'clock straight up on the East Coast. Got to start wrapping up. Who do you like tonight?
Yeah, I definitely am leaning toward the Rams in this one. The Niners are just way too beat up. Yes, they have Fred Warner, and they're going to have Christian McCaffrey out there. But the way Puka Nacua is playing, he won my game ball last week, 13 receptions, 15 targets, and Stafford's feeling good with that back. As long as Kyron Williams holds on to the football, I think the Rams win this one.
All right, brother. Always appreciate it. That back your plate is up. Follow Lloyd on social media at Lloyd Vance. And of course, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Sports Radio 1029 FM, the game Mondays 8 to 9. Appreciate a couple moments, brother.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. My guy, Lloyd Vance. A lot of comments coming in. Let me rip through a couple more. Kevin C. in Jacksonville. Jackson, New Jersey chimes in. Q, I'm taking the Giants in a money line. Marty in Delaware. My Ravens are absolutely cooked. Q, go ahead. You can say it. Richie Chiefs fan says, Q, I think you wrote off the Chiefs a little too soon. Ha, ha, ha. Mike again from Ohio. I don't want to see Sanders. I don't want to see Gabriel. I don't want to see Flacco. How about Madman, by the way? I have to read Madman's comment because there was no Woosah Wednesday yesterday. And I know he wants to know if his comments are being read, because we got some leaks. Just want to say we need to change Wednesday's show name to Wimp Out Woos Wednesday. Not happening. We had to cover the hoops. Couple more before we get out of here. Matt, Jets fan, Q, do you think Glenn's going to be one and done? No, not at all. RJ chimes in. Q, I'm a big time Cincinnati fan. Did you hear what Zach Taylor said? They are not thinking about adding another quarterback to the roster. There's no way I can maintain my sanity with Jake from State Farm back there. Yeah, I mean, they remain confident in Browning. I just don't see it. It doesn't make sense. All right, baseball real quick. Let me give you some updates before we get out of here. Cubs over the Pods, bottom of the third, 2-0. Yanks and the Red Sox. What is that? 6:06 first pitch. And how about this? The Tigers doubling up the Guardians. The Guardians were one of the hottest teams down the stretch. And the Tigers get the win 6-3. They close them out and win that series 2-1. So the Tigers advance. I mean, that's again, it's one of the reasons I can't stand these, best of three. It's so annoying, man. You can win 95, 96, 100 games. It's so important to win your division in baseball. The hell with the wild card. Sure, it makes it interesting. All right, I got to go get locked in right now with the Yankees. I got to pay attention because, again, I will be ticked off tomorrow when we're on the air. What the Frick Friday edition. Busy show. John Buehler is going to join us. We'll see if we can try to get James Hasty on. I know he was traveling about a week or so ago. You guys as well out there. As always, get social with me at Rich Q on Q. TikTok, Rich Q on the mic. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at Rich Q or at Rich Quinones. We are powered by our good friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. You guys enjoy the baseball, enjoy Thursday Night Football. We will be back in the saddle mañana for a Football Friday edition of On Q. Until then, as we like to say, be safe, be sound, enjoy the baseball tonight, Yanks and the Sox, enjoy the Thursday Night Football, and we will do it again tomorrow. As always, hasta luego, mi día.